Good evening, and welcome to the Town of Cary's Planning and Zoning Board meeting for August 23rd, 2021. I'll call this meeting to order and thank you for joining us tonight. All board members, staff members, and applicants are participating remotely. While this is a public meeting, please be aware this is not a public hearing. There is no opportunity for the public to speak during this meeting. If you have comments about any of these cases, we encourage you to reach out to the staff case manager or the applicant by email or phone. You may reach out to our board members through email. You may also contact counsel directly through email or during the public speaks out portion of any regularly scheduled town council meeting. Because we are meeting remotely, I will call on each member individually to confirm their attendance at this meeting. All motions, seconds, and votes will be verbally obtained. So the first item on the agenda is roll call. So I'll start off. Don Hamilton, please, or all members, please respond by aye. Present. Don Hamilton.
Present.
Nicole Samuel.
Present.
Mary Jo Hill.
Present.
Chuck Montgomery.
Present.
Steve Crutchfield.
Present.
Jessica Pearson.
Present.
John Sorrell.
Present.
Jessica McClure.
Present.
And I, Dan McFarland, am present as well. We have a full quorum. Everybody is here tonight. That's wonderful. The second item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. Is there a motion to adopt tonight's agenda?
So moved.
And is there a second? Thank you, Chuck.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. And a roll call. I will call on each of you and state your vote. Don Hamilton.
Aye.
Nicole Samuel.
Aye.
Mary Jo Hill.
Aye.
Chuck Montgomery.
Aye.
Steve Crutchfield.
Aye.
Jessica Pearson.
Aye.
John Sorrell.
Aye.
Jessica McClure.
Aye.
And I vote the affirmative as well. Passes unanimously. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the July 26th meeting. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
This is Don. Make a motion to approve.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. I'll call on each of you and state your vote, please. Don Hamilton.
Aye.
Nicole Samuel.
Aye.
Mary Jo Hill.
Aye.
Thank you. Chuck Montgomery.
Aye.
Steve Crutchfield.
Aye.
Jessica Pearson.
Aye.
John Sorrell.
Aye.
Jessica McClure.
Aye.
And I vote in the affirmative as well. Passes unanimously. Okay, let's move on to our cases for this evening. We have three cases. The first case in the agenda is 20 REZ 11. It's the 3890 North Carolina Highway 55 rezoning. Senior Planner Aaron Puckett will present the staff's presentation. Following the presentation, the applicant will share their remarks. All board members will have an opportunity to ask questions of staff and the applicant. Ms. Puckett, good evening. You may proceed.
Thank you so much, and good evening, board. This is a request to rezone 1.89 acres located at 3890 NC 55 Highway. The subject property is located on the east side of NC 55, south of its intersection with Indian Wells Lane. The Blakely subdivision is across NC 55 to the west, and the Carpenter Historic District is across the railroad to the east of the site. According to Cary's GIS, there are no stream buffers present on the site. Field determination of such features is required at time of development plan review. NC 55 Highway is a 4-lane median divided thoroughfare, and sidewalk is required on the east side of the road. Go Triangle Route 311 serves NC 55 directly adjacent to the subject property, and a potential bus stop location will be analyzed during development plan review. According to the Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources Master Plan, a future streetside trail is proposed on the western side of NC 55 opposite this site, and the future Village Trail Greenway traverses properties to the east through the Carpenter area. The site is currently zoned Office Research and Development Conditional Use, and the applicant proposes rezoning the site to General Commercial Conditional Use. The applicant proposes the following zoning conditions. Use shall be limited to a grocery store. The maximum size shall be 10,000 square feet. The maximum height shall be 2 stories or 35 feet maximum. A 20-foot Type B buffer shall be provided along the eastern property line adjacent to the railroad, and the standard LDO shrub spacing of 8 feet maximum shall be reduced to 5 feet. This exceeds the LDO required planting standard. And red brick shall be the only material used to fulfill the masonry requirement of the Community Appearance Manual. These height and buffer conditions were offered with the previous rezoning case to ORDCU, and so they're being retained with this new request. As a further comparison to the existing zoning, a number of commercial and light industrial uses are permitted under the previously approved ORDCU zoning, including motor vehicle sales, hotels, kennels, parking lots and decks as standalone uses, light manufacturing, and warehousing, among others. The proposed rezoning would limit the permitted use to a grocery store only. In an analysis of the request against the policies of the Imagine Cary Community Plan, policies in the work and shape chapters were found to be most applicable. Rezoning for the proposed grocery store at a maximum size of 10,000 square feet could help support a small business. Most big box grocery stores in Cary range from around 30,000 to over 50,000 square feet, so this size would likely only support a smaller specialty grocer. The small site near a number of residential neighborhoods could be an appropriate location for such a use. Regarding the shape chapter, the site is an infill property bounded by NC 55 and the railroad to the west and east, respectively. A Bojangles is approved for the site directly to the north with a building permit in review. The newly constructed public storage is located to the south, with one vacant parcel in between it and the subject site. The small grocery store would also provide an appropriate use transition between these other non-residential uses. And the small site and surrounding development context makes this a reasonable location for a small commercial use outside of a designated commercial center. The site is also located in the historic Carpenter Special Planning Area on the Future Growth Framework map, specifically in the mixed non-residential corridor subdistrict. This area supports office and commercial uses complementary to the Crossroads Village to the east. Screening of development from properties to the east is encouraged, and smaller scale buildings with a maximum height of 2 stories are recommended. The use of the site as a small grocery store could potentially be more consistent with these recommendations than some of the uses currently allowed under the existing zoning, such as a number of the permitted light industrial uses. A virtual neighborhood meeting was held in April, and approximately 20 nearby residents attended. The primary concerns were about traffic, especially at the intersection of NC 55 and Morrisville Carpenter Road. Some of the attendees expressed an interest in the grocery store use, and some expressed a desire for a pedestrian crossing for residents on the west side of NC 55 to be able to access the future store. Staff received 5 emails after the neighborhood meeting. Some had questions about the request or meeting schedule. One citizen had concerns with existing noise from NC 55 and how the proposed use might exacerbate this. One citizen felt that there were already plenty of grocery stores in the area. One expressed a desire for a safe pedestrian crossing across NC 55, and 2 of these emails both expressed concerns with traffic as well. A virtual public hearing was held in June. No citizen spoke or submitted comments at that meeting. Council had several comments, including an observation that the limited use proposed was a positive change from the existing zoning, which allowed for a large variety of uses. Some members did note that this corridor along NC 55 was developing in a piecemeal manner, and they would like to see some consistency with the architecture of buildings. They also asked staff to look into the NC 55 crossing at Indian Wells Road, which staff have confirmed is in process, with NCDOT having already installed the high visibility pavement markings with pedestrian signals forthcoming. Since the public hearing, the applicant has offered an additional condition to utilize red brick in the building facades to fulfill the masonry requirement of the Community Appearance Manual. This is consistent with the red brick approved for the Bojangles and the convenience store approved on parcels to the north. Staff's preliminary finding is for consistency with the Imagine Cary community plan. We found that the request supports several work policies as it provides an opportunity to attract and support a small business. It also supports a number of shape policies in developing an infill site with a use that provides a good transition between adjoining non-residential uses, both in terms of the small commercial use as well as the commitment to red brick for a consistent appearance with recent development on this corridor. The commercial use, as well as the two-story height limit and increased plantings along the railroad-facing side of the property, are also consistent with the historic Carpenter Special Planning Area vision for the mixed non-residential corridor. In evaluating the request this evening, the board may wish to consider a number of questions, such as whether the requested use is appropriate in this location, whether it would provide appropriate transitions between adjacent uses, and whether the use and size are appropriate in the mixed non-residential corridor of the Carpenter Special Planning Area. This concludes my presentation. Following the applicant's comments, I am available to answer any questions. Brendy Vega, the applicant's representative, is on the line to speak on the applicant's behalf. And Ms. Vega, you may begin.
Thank you, Erin. Good evening, Chair McFarland and board members. My name is Brendy Vega. I am the Director of Planning with Withers Ravenel. My address is 137 South Wilmington Street, Suite 200, Raleigh. The site before you is currently entitled for a multitude of uses as shown in an earlier slide. Unfortunately, not among that list of uses is grocery. The applicant is requesting a rezone to change the current zoning to allow for grocery store. They are keeping the same zoning conditions previously applied and adding that grocery will be the only permitted use and that red brick will be used. As Erin mentioned, the red brick is being offered to match the red brick in the Eagles and Bojangles sites just to the north and to provide for consistency in architecture. The applicants are looking to establish a store along this corridor. They plan on carrying Indian groceries and selling prepared food. As Erin mentioned, this is a much smaller footprint than other retail stores, smaller than your standard CVS or Walgreens, which are generally around 14,000 square feet. The council did raise concerns about the back of the building. We tried to offer some conditions that may address those concerns, but it was found that the LDO addressed many of the screening requirements we had proposed, and we do think the buffer, along with the LDO, should help adequately buffer the views from the rail corridor and address these concerns. During the neighborhood meeting, one of the neighbors did mention that having driveways was a hazard along 55. So I do just want to mention that this site will not have its own driveway. Instead, there is a shared driveway just to the south and cross-access easements that provide connectivity north to Morrisville Carpenter Road. I am available to answer any questions you have for myself or the applicant, and I want to thank you for your consideration of this request.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Puckett and Ms. Vega for your presentations. So I'm going to go and ask each staff person for questions for either the staff or applicant. And I'll start off with Don Hamilton. Don, do you have any questions?
No, sir, I don't have any.
Okay, thank you. Nicole Samuel, questions for the staff or applicant?
Yeah, I have just a clarifying question for the applicant. You mentioned that there would be no driveways, but you're saying that essentially, I pulled that up on Google Maps, that someone would be able to drive like through parking lots to get up to Indian Wells Road or Morrisville Carpenter Road. Is that how someone would enter or exit?
Yes, there'll be a shared driveway on the southern portion of the site. And so the cross-access easements that are provided through Bojangles and through to Eagles would provide access to Morrisville Carpenter Road. So someone could potentially stop at the gas station and then come to the grocery store without getting back out onto 55. So there is cross-access easements provided along that line is commercial.
Okay, thank you. That was all my questions. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Nicole. Mary Jo Hill, questions?
I don't have any questions.
Okay, thank you. Chuck Montgomery, questions for the staff or applicant?
Just a clarification, when you say that it'll have a brick facade, is that on all four walls, and particularly on the east wall?
That's correct. So our community appearance manual, or CAM, does require that masonry component on all four facades. So the applicant has offered that that'll be met with red brick. So the red brick will be on all four facades.
Good.
Any other questions, Chuck?
No, that's all.
Okay, thanks. Steve Crutchfield, questions for the staff or applicant?
Just a quick follow-up on Nicole's question. So the access road, or whatever we're calling this, that'll go from the gas station to the Bojangles to the grocery store, you won't be driving through the parking lots, right? You'll turn into these three different establishments from this road. Is that how that will work?
This is Erin again. So yes, I believe that's how it's oriented. There actually is a service road that runs kind of between the railroad and these sites. So as Ms. Vega stated, that's like an access easement for all three of them, that comes out to the south of this site onto NC 55 where that shared driveway is. So yes, it's actually like a shared private service road along the back of these sites. So they won't necessarily be going through parking lots. It's actually a little service road for these establishments.
Okay, that makes sense. And then this is just an educational question. When you have a grocery store, and I don't know of any grocery store that doesn't do this, but I assume it doesn't change zoning. When you're selling prepared foods, sit-down meals, whatever, in the grocery store, it's still classified as a grocery store?
That is
Is that how we look
correct.
at it
So
from a zoning?
that's correct. Yeah, we would assume any grocery store use could potentially have some prepared foods or takeaway foods along with it. And that would still certainly be included in that grocery store use.
Okay, that's fine. You know, because some of these stores, they actually have even sit-down areas in them now. They're, Wegmans, for example. So that, I just wanted to make sure. All right, that's all. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Jessica Pearson, any questions for staff or applicant?
Thank you, Dan. I'm keeping my video off because I'm still having bandwidth issues at home. I did have one question. It's about the size of the grocery store. So um, the parcel is 1.89 acres, which is north of 80,000 square feet. So why is the applicant limiting the size of the grocery store to 10,000 square feet?
I can answer that, Erin. Once we get above 10,000 square feet, which the applicant is not seeking to do, I believe that would kick in a traffic impact analysis, which would also mean that it's creating more traffic. So
Okay.
the applicants have sufficient capacity with their 10,000 square foot. They have a similar store in Morrisville. And didn't feel that they needed to go any bigger at this time. Thank you.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you. No more questions for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Jessica. John Searle, questions for the staff or applicant?
No questions. Thank you.
Thanks. And Jessica McClure, do you have any questions?
No questions.
All right. Well, I guess that it's me. I do have a few questions. And the first one, I guess, because it's limiting to just grocery use, if down the road, if that building wanted to be used for a different use, it would have to come back for rezoning. Is that correct, Erin, Ms. Bucket?
That is correct. Yes,
Okay.
it would be grocery store solely under the proposed zoning.
And I'm fascinated by the right of way, basically that access road. I had visions of getting off on a turnpike somewhere and seeing that. And I'm looking at it on a map. Is there a to access that road? Is there like a right-hand turn lane. I'm just thinking about traffic, and this is not this proposal, not this application, but the series that we have here begins feeling a little bit like a traffic problem, death by 1,000 paper cuts. Because we have a convenient gas store, we have a fast food restaurant, we have this restaurant, then we have this commercial development here, this supermarket. And I'm just thinking about Highway 55 at 8 a.m. in the morning. People want to go to Bojangles. You're going to have every high school kid on that side of town hitting Bojangles, the gas station, et cetera, et cetera. And so I'm just beginning to wonder about the traffic, particularly heading northbound on 55. And like, is there a right turn access, of some sort for some loading or I'm just curious about that. And I'm not looking to appreciate what the applicant said about keeping it under 10,000 square feet in the traffic study. But I just want to ask that question as we look at everything going on from the totality of it with these 3 individual parcels. And I think there'll be a 4th one coming up, at a future date.
So could I just clarify, are you asking if there would be a right in, right out from 55 into the site?
Yeah, or at least, yeah. I mean, what does that begin looking like? Or is it, I'm just thinking about people want to turn into that access road. Is it just going to be 2 lanes all the way and people will be tapping their brakes? I'm just trying to get a vision of how people will be getting in and out of that. I mean, the reality is that Highway 55, people go 55 miles an hour. And going northbound, it's 2 lanes. So I'm just trying to understand.
So I believe that the site itself may not be able to achieve a right in, right out because of the service road access that's on the south end of this site. I believe we do have Priyatham Kanda with our transportation department on the call who might be able to clarify that. If they may not even be allowed by NCDOT to have one because of the close spacing of that access point. Mr. Kanda, are you able to confirm if that's the case?
Yes, so let me try to answer the first question. So each of these entrances that are planned for the set of uses between Indian Wells Road and Morsel Parkway, they have shared access points, all of which are right in, right outs. And I believe one of them also has a leftover. From 55, you can make a left turn into the side. And each of these access points have a separate right turn lane. So that should help anyone going north if they want to turn into the side, to help them slow down a little bit, decelerate, and then get into the side. And most of the people that are coming from the north into the side, they can make a left turn onto Indian Wells Road, which will be a dead end in the future. So when I say Indian Wells Road, it is Morsel Carpenter Road on the other side. That's going to be a dead end, and the traffic that will be using that small segment is only the traffic that is going into these uses. So they will have a dedicated signal that they could make a left in and left out of also.
Okay, that's helpful. I appreciate that, Mr. Kanda, for that clarification. And I didn't realize that was going to become a dead end street. So if you're coming from the north and you take that left turn onto going towards Carpenter Farm Supply there, that it'll be a dead end. So you'll have no other choice but to go into that access road.
That is correct. Once the Carpenter Fire Station, the railroad project is done, this will terminate prior to the railroad crossing.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that clarification. All right, I don't have any other questions. So at this point, I'll ask, would somebody like to make a motion on 20 REZ 11? And I believe the motion should be up on our screens.
This is Don. I'll make a motion.
Please, is there?
Yep. I move that the board find case number 20 REZ 11 is consistent with the comprehensive plan and all other applicable plans for the reasons set forth in the staff report, presentation, and discussion by the Planning and Zoning Board.
Thank you, Don. Do we have a second on that motion?
And this is Chuck. I'll second the motion.
Thank you. All right, is there any discussion on the motion? I'll call on each of you for discussion. Don, I'm going to start off with you because you've made the motion.
Gotcha. Yeah, I really don't have a lot to add. I agree with staff's comment that I think this is actually a better fit than what could go in currently.
And Chuck, do you have any comments or discussion?
No, that's basically the same reasoning here. Is there are all these possible uses which would be less desirable, and this seems to be more desirable. And I also think they've done a reasonable job of trying to accommodate the surroundings, particularly with the brick and those sorts of things.
Okay. Let me go around the horn with everybody else. Nicole, any comments for discussion?
No, nothing additional. I think it's a good fit for the space. So nothing more to add.
Good, thanks. Mary Jo Hill?
I have nothing further. I agree with the comments that have been made originally.
Thanks. Steve Crutchfield, any comments for discussion?
I agree with what's been said. I think it's going to be interesting on how this access road works. And I think it looks like there's still 2 more potential lots, but to me, this is a kind of a difficult infill site, and it makes sense to put something there that's, especially that's not even going to be as large as it could be considering the available space. So I think it's a good fit.
Okay. Thanks, Steve. Jessica Pearson, comments for discussion?
Yeah, thank you. I do think that the zoning is appropriate. I appreciate that the use will be limited to the grocery store as well as the size being limited. So I do think the use and the size are appropriate for this site. And of course, I do also appreciate the all brick building. I think that that's a really great addition to the zoning conditions. So I agree with what everybody else has said.
Great, thanks, Jessica. John Sorrell, any comments for discussion?
Nothing new to add. I agree with what has been stated so far. Thank you.
Thank you. And Jessica McClure?
Nothing else.
All right. I'll simply add that I had a visceral reaction when I first saw this case, and then when I realized that there was going to be a convenient gas station already on that corner, followed by a fast food restaurant, those reactions quickly dissipated when I realized that the die had been cast. I appreciate the conditions that the applicants made, agree on particularly the brick. I think it'll help that all those buildings will be consistent in that, and as well as the buffer on the back. The access road is a big plus in terms of, I think, helping with traffic mitigation. So kudos to the applicant for that. So I'm going to call on each of you for your vote. So please state your vote. Don Hamilton?
Aye.
Nicole Samuel?
Aye.
Mary Jo Hill?
Aye.
Chuck Montgomery? Steve Crutchfield?
Aye.
Jessica Pearson?
Aye.
John Sorrell?
Aye.
Jessica McClure?
Aye.
And I vote in the affirmative as well. It passes unanimously. Thank you very much. So let's move on to the second item before us this evening, which is rezoning case 21 REZ05, which is the Echo Park car dealership rezoning. Planner Heather Wellahan will share the staff's presentation, and following her presentation, the applicant will share their remarks. Following their remarks, all board members have an opportunity to ask questions of staff and the applicant. Ms. Wellahan, you may proceed, please.
Thank you. Good evening, board. I'm happy to be with you all, albeit virtually tonight, to present this request to rezone 15.33 acres at 2333 Walnut Street. As you may recognize, this is the site of the old Crossroads Ford dealership. This site was originally approved in 2005 with an activity center concept plan that included a number of zoning conditions, such as prohibiting the sale of used cars. The subject rezoning area shown here in yellow is on the east side of Walnut Street, just south of Dillard Drive, and opposite the Centrum at Crossroads Shopping Center. To the north is the former Miller Mott Community College, and now the home of a Wake County school STEM site. This is what the site looked like as Crossroads Ford in 2005. In 2019, the owners considered converting the building to an office use. The facade was renovated and new landscaping was planted throughout the site. No office tenant was secured, however, and the building remains vacant at this time. The existing zoning, office and institutional, is within the mixed-use overlay district and is further governed by the Crossroads Activity Center concept plan. The applicant seeks to change the zoning from office and institutional to mixed-use district with a preliminary development plan. As I mentioned, the current zoning carries a condition restricting the use to new car sales only. The Echo Park PDP proposes to expand this use to include new and used car sales, as well as vehicle service light for the purpose of reconditioning vehicles prior to sale. No post-sale servicing of vehicles for customers or third parties shall be permitted. In addition to those permitted uses, the plan proposes to utilize the existing 134,000 square foot building, maintain the existing 30-foot streetscape along Walnut Street and the existing 50-foot type A perimeter buffers, provide 2 electric vehicle charging stations, maintain 3 champion trees, and maintain the existing greenway easement along the western property boundary and construct a street side trail to complete the north-south Walnut Street pedestrian connection. The PDP includes one modification to LDO's development standards. Specifically, the applicant seeks a 71% modification to the LDO parking requirement. And since this is a pretty substantial modification request, I wanted to provide a little further detail. The identified uses amount to a parking requirement of 362 spaces per the typical LDO standard. The applicant is currently showing 105 spaces outside of a gated security inventory area. These 105 spaces shown here in gray would be the spaces for customers and employees. The PDP also shows the existing 379 spaces shown here in blue inside this gated inventory area. These spaces will remain on the site. Since the applicant is proposing these gates to secure the inventory area, these spaces inside the blue cannot count toward their LDO parking requirement. However, since the parking does exist on the site, the business could adjust these gates in the future to provide more parking in the event of greater customer demand. Cary's GIS maps indicate a 50-foot stream buffer at the northeast corner of the property. The PRCR facilities master plan shows a north-south future greenway along the rear of the property. In our preliminary analysis, staff finds the proposed development directly addresses policies in the work, shop, and shape chapters of the Imagine Cary community plan. Work chapter policies include providing a variety of employment sites and locations to meet the unique needs of new businesses. This chapter also notes the importance of including employment uses within destination centers. And although this is not office, the proposed use will provide employment and meet the needs of a new Cary business. Shop chapter policies highlight the importance of revitalizing underperforming commercial centers with businesses that meet current retail and shopping preferences. The proposed rezoning would facilitate the activation of this existing vacant property. The shape chapter encourages the redevelopment of distressed or underperforming sites. This proposed rezoning furthers this objective by supporting the revitalization of this existing vacant building. Shape also encourages harmonious transitions between differing land uses and intensities. The proposal commits to preserving the existing vegetated buffers and thereby mitigating the impact of this business on the adjacent school, office, and residential uses. The property is within the Destination Center designation of the Future Growth Framework map. Destination centers are Cary's premier mixed-use centers and include an integrated mix of uses with large-scale commercial as an incidental use type. We conducted a virtual neighborhood meeting in June. There were no citizen attendees, and staff has not received any calls or emails about this case. A public hearing was held in June. There were no written comments and no call-in comments. One council member expressed desire for the property to be repurposed as an office. Other council members noted the high quality aesthetics of the current building and that the site is well positioned for use as a car dealership. The applicant has not made any substantial changes to the preliminary development plan since the public hearing. Minor wording edits and clarifications have been made. Staff's preliminary finding is for consistency with the Imagine Cary community plan. We found that the request supports several workshop and shape policies as it helps meet the unique needs of a new business, facilitates the revitalization and activation of an underperforming site, and maintains appropriate transition between uses. In evaluating the request, the board may wish to consider a number of questions, such as whether the PDP amendment for new or used car sales, as well as vehicle service light, is appropriate in this location, and whether the requested parking modification is appropriate and justified. This concludes staff's presentation, and following the applicant's comments and we are available to answer any questions. Russell Killen, the applicant's representative, is here to speak on the applicant's behalf. Mr. Killen, you may begin.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Russell Killen with Park Propel on behalf of Echo Park. My address is 301 Fayetteville Street, Suite 1400, Raleigh, North Carolina. Jigna Gopaldis is also here with me tonight on behalf of Echo Park, and we appreciate your time. Staff has done a good job in summarizing this. This is Echo Park's first location in the Triangle, and they're excited about it and the opportunity here. There was no major change of use, minimal changes to the site. The building, fortunately for us, has already been updated, even though it's been vacant for some time. And so do not have a detailed presentation for you, but happy to take any questions or comments you may have regarding the plan.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Wellahan, and thank you, Mr. Killen, for your comments and your comments. So at this point, I'm going to go around the horn once again, following the presentations, and allow each board member to ask any questions of staff or the applicant. So I'm going to start off with Don Hamilton. Don, do you have any questions for staff or applicant?
Yes, sir. Just a quick one. The security fencing, will that be seen from Walnut Street?
I think so, and we have a picture of the security fencing. Heather, can you show that? We had one extra slide thinking you might want to see this because it's not really security fencing like you would think about it. It's really gated, and it's bollards with one rail running. So it's not a fenced-in inventory area. It's just really a way to protect the inventory and keep cars from going in and out, and people from going in and out without our permission. It doesn't look like your typical fencing around an auto dealer.
Great, that picture's perfect. I was envisioning a chain link fence. Wouldn't look good.
Thought that concern might be here, so Heather was kind enough to put this in a presentation in case we needed it.
All right. Don, any other questions?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. Nicole Samuel, any questions?
No questions.
Mary Jo Hill, any questions?
This was a question, I guess, sort of related to the type of business it is. I was just curious about the fact that there will be no servicing of vehicles after the sale. What is the how do people handle that, or is it typical, or is that just some dealerships do that, some don't?
Yeah, I think it's exactly that. That's correct. Some dealerships do. This location will not offer post-sale servicing of vehicles, and so there are other locations or other local merchants that do provide that, and you can get it there, but that is not something that's going to be provided in this location.
Interesting. Okay. I just have always assumed that was a part of the dealership concept, but clearly there are other options. So I think that's the only question I have.
Okay, thanks, Mary Jo. Chuck Montgomery, questions?
Yeah, I wanted to clarify the history of the site. If I recall, this was formerly a new car dealership, and then the building was changed in order to try to lease it as office space. And now the idea is to go back to a car dealership. Is that correct?
That is correct. The landlord did not have a lot of luck in leasing it up as office space, and so it's remained vacant since they renovated it.
And how long did they have it on the market for office space?
Well, I don't know the answer to that question.
It was renovated in 2019.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that's all the questions I have.
Thank you, Chuck. Steve Crutchfield, questions.
One question, the plan that we're looking at right now, the customer parking area, that looks identical to what Crossroad had prior. Is that true? I mean, this really hasn't changed, has it?
I believe that is correct. The inventory area is what they use for inventory area. The customer parking area is generally what they use for customer and employee parking.
So really, you're just adding the EV charging stations, and it's going to really be the same size as it was prior.
I believe that is correct.
Okay, that makes sense. I don't remember that ever being crowded, so that makes sense. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Jessica Pearson, questions for staff or applicant.
Yeah, I have a question for the applicant. And it's about the parking reduction. So is there another Echo Park facility where you have a similar sized parking situation? And a follow-up question is, what are the volume of visits like? Do they, do you have a lot of people at the weekends? Like, I'm just curious about.
Right. I'm actually going to refer to Jigna for that
Sure.
response.
Sure. Thanks, Russell. We do have a very similar facility. The closest one would be in Charlotte, North Carolina. And at that facility, we actually do a bit of service, and the traffic is actually similar or less than what we expect to have in Cary. The model, and this will also answer the previous question about service business, we have since adjusted our business model to only sell vehicles that are essentially like new. So they are 1 to 5 years in age, therefore under the original manufacturer warranty, therefore predicating us to be able to not do post-sale or third-party servicing. So the shop is really only for the light reconditioning, pulling dents, that sort of thing, to really get the vehicles back in near perfect condition before they are sold. And in terms of the sales, we've seen a lot of the sales go virtual, so we expect most of our customers will be searching inventory online and will come to the facility for maybe 1 to 2 hours at a time. And we typically will see maybe 20 to 25 customers in the day picking up a vehicle during the weekends, with a little bit less during the week. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, that does answer my question. That's very helpful. Thank you.
Thanks, Jessica. John Sorrell, do you have any questions?
I have one question for staff. The old zoning condition regarding new versus used car sales seems somewhat strange to me. I'm guessing that was a voluntary condition back in the day. But I was curious, is there any distinction within current zoning where the town looks at new car sales versus used car sales differently?
Our use category for vehicle sales is just any vehicle sales. So yes, that would have been a condition that the applicant at that time in 2004 would have been offering to sort of speak to the type of business and the caliber of business that would be coming to the site.
Perfect.
But we don't differentiate between new and used car sales as a use.
That's exactly what I was looking for. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions, John?
No further questions.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it. Jessica McClure, any questions?
Nope, everybody got all mine.
Okay, I just have one question.
Dan, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Can I ask an additional question when you're done?
Certainly, I will ask. Thank you for the reminder to make sure I get folks who might have one last question. I'll go back.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jessica. My question has to deal with the existing streetscape and I guess the facade. Is the intent of the applicant to leave the existing streetscape as it is? I know that there's a 30-foot streetscape, but in terms of any major changes to the existing landscaping that's there, I'm just curious.
There are not plans for, excuse me, major changes to the landscaping at all.
Okay, any major changes beyond signage, et cetera, to the facade that's there?
No.
Okay, all right, thank you. Those are my questions. Jessica Pearson, you had a question.
Yeah, I did. I just wanted to ask staff, so when the building was renovated in 2019 to office use, it did not need to be rezoned, that office use is allowed under the current zoning. Would it also be allowed under this rezoning?
Office use is allowed under the office and O&I zoning that the property currently has. So this rezoning would be is an MXD rezoning with the preliminary development plan, and the only uses that are going to be permitted are new and used car sales and vehicle service light. So it would need to be rezoned if they were going to come in with an office use subsequently.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Thank you.
Thanks. Let me ask a question, open it up to any other board members. Do you have any follow-up questions such as Jessica had? You can unmute yourself and speak up. Not hearing any. Okay. Would anybody like to make a motion on 21 REZ05, the Echo Park car dealership rezoning? And the motions are in front of you.
This is Mary Jo. I'll be glad to make that motion.
I heard Mary Jo first, so Mary Jo, I'll let you.
Let her, yeah, please, go ahead.
Thank you. I move that the board find case number 21 REZ05 is consistent with the comprehensive plan and all other applicable plans for the reasons set forth in the staff report, presentation, and discussion by the Planning and Zoning Board.
And do I have a second?
I can second it.
All right, Steve, thank you. All right, so discussion. Well, Mary Jo, will you start us off in the discussion, please?
Well, I think it's kind of an easy call. The building has been there for a while. We all knew, most of us knew it, recognized it as Crossroads Ford for a while. And in spite of the fact that it was renovated on the exterior, maybe the interior too, but we don't see that. It's a pretty easy segue to having another car dealership there. So, and the fact that it's been sitting vacant for 2 years or so is showing that there's not a demand for an office there. So I think it's an appropriate use to continue its legacy as a car dealership.
Okay, thank you, Mary Jo. Steve, comments for discussion?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, to me, if you look at this as kind of a gateway, if you will, from that side of Cary, and the way this building is laid out, to me, it doesn't look anything like a car dealership. You know, it really looks like an office building. So I think this is totally, consistent, and it's, it's bringing in another company into Cary that's not here today, and to me, it's almost I've never seen one that matches like this, where we didn't really get any comments from any citizen. So it seems to be pretty non-controversial.
Okay, thanks, Steve. All right, we'll continue on with comments for discussion. Don Hamilton?
I have nothing to add. Thank you.
Thanks. Nicole Samuel?
No additional comments.
Chuck Montgomery?
I want to thank Mr. Killen for showing us the picture of the fence. I had some concerns about a big chain link fence, and what he showed us looked quite nice. So I think it's a good proposal.
Okay, thanks, Chuck. Jessica Pearson?
Yeah, I agree that the use is consistent. I mean, I agree with Steve. It's so straightforward. I also think it's great that a vacant building can be reused and repurposed and not have to be demolished. And I also think it's really cool that this new type of car buying experience is coming to Cary. I think all of those things are positives. So I'm definitely in support of this rezoning.
All right, great. Thank you, Jessica. John Sorrell, comments for discussion.
Yeah, when I think about the nature of the change that this represents, it's really pretty minimal, from a existing dealership to a new dealership that sells used cars. The only real substantial difference that I see is aesthetic and the way this site is laid out. To echo what Steve said, it's completely shielded from the street. You know, all of the cars and inventories are back off the street, and so I see very little change. Makes good sense.
Mhm. Thank you. And Jessica McClure?
Nothing additional.
Yeah, and I'll just simply add, I think I'll echo what a lot of other folks have already said, that this is easy because we can, even though it's a rezoning, we can visualize what it's going to be because there's very little change going on at the site. And I think most, if not all of us, can remember when it was a car dealership. And we know, so we have in our mind's eye what that would be like. So little has changed. And I can appreciate the business model as other business models like that in the car business. The number of them are in Raleigh, but they basically are selling, newer cars and just doing the refurbishing. So, all right, now we'll call on, there'll be a verbal vote. And I'm going to call on each of you to please state your vote if there's no other comments for discussion. Hearing no other comments, let's move to a vote. Don Hamilton?
Aye.
Nicole Samuel?
Aye.
Mary Jo Hill?
Aye.
Chuck Montgomery?
Aye.
Steve Crutchfield?
Aye.
Jessica Pearson?
Aye.
John Sorrell?
Aye.
Jessica McClure?
Aye.
And I vote in the affirmative as well. The motion passes unanimously 9-0. Okay, let's move on to the last item before us this evening, which is rezoning case 21 REZ07 Mills Residential Rezoning. Principal planner Anna Redding will share the staff's presentation. Following the presentation, the applicant will share their remarks, and following those remarks, all board members have an opportunity to ask questions of staff and the applicant. Ms. Redling, you may proceed.
Thank you. Good evening, board. This is a request to rezone approximately 33 acres located at 7921 Mills Road in the Green Level area of Western Cary. The site is located at the corner of Mills Road and Green Level Church Road. You can see the Woodland subdivision just to the north. Sutherland subdivision is to the east. There is open land to the west, and just inside the southeast corner, there are 4 large tracts containing single-family dwellings. And the Green Level National Register Historic District boundary is depicted in blue. The property is in Cary's extraterritorial jurisdiction and is currently zoned R40. And the applicant is requesting R12 conditional use zoning, which will require a 12,000 square foot minimum lot size, with the following zoning conditions that were presented at the Town Council public hearing. And they are: uses shall be limited to 55 detached dwellings, associated accessory uses, and neighborhood recreation. The lot area for the residential lots shall be calculated based on the actual lot size and will exclude any adjacent land area which is located within a riparian buffer. And no site development plan for new development shall be submitted with a residential driveway cut along Green Level Church Road or Mills Road. Following the public hearing and in response to comments from council, the following zoning conditions were added. The Green Level Church Road streetscape will average 70 feet in width with a 50-foot minimum width and meet a Type A buffer standard. And the LDO standard is 50 feet. So this exceeds the LDO standard. Mills Road will have a 30-foot wide streetscape meeting a Type B buffer standard, and the LDO does not have a streetscape requirement for a local street, which is what Mills Road is. So this exceeds LDO also. And any new streetscape plantings shall be native species installed to mimic the form of a natural forest edge. And in consultation with Cary's historic preservation planner, a fence constructed primarily of wood and a design reflecting the historic character of the area will be installed 50 feet in each direction from the corner of the Mills Road and Green Level Church Road intersection. A minimum of 5 additional ornamental trees of a species common to North Carolina's rural landscape will be installed adjacent to the fence. Cary's GIS maps indicate a pond on the site and potential need for a stream buffer along the flat branch, which runs along the western boundary of the site. Field determination will be required at the time of development plan review. And Green Level Church Road is designated as a future 4-lane median divided road. The Green Level Church Road study, completed in 2019, recommends a context-sensitive design that takes into account the historic nature of the community and land uses along the corridor. Mills Road is designated as a local road. The Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources Master Plan proposes the Flat Branch Greenway Trail along the western boundary of the site. Greenway easement dedication is required and will occur during the development plan review process. An analysis of the request against the Imagine Cary Community Plan finds that policies in the Live, Engage, and Shape chapters apply. The applicant is proposing compatible residential infill that meets Live policies, and in support of Shape and Engage policies, the applicant has added zoning conditions to maintain the attractive appearance of the area and to complement the historic context. The site is located in the Green Level Special Planning Area on the Future Growth Framework map. The Green Level SPA boundary is shown on the map in red, and the subject site is depicted by the red star. Within this special planning area, the plan envisions mostly single-family detached housing, a general decrease in density across Green Level as you move from west to east, and an aggregate, from east to west, I have that backwards, as you move from east to west, and an aggregate density for the special planning area not exceeding about 3 dwellings per acre. The applicant's proposal meets this vision by limiting development to single-family detached dwellings at a density of 1.67 units per acre. Specific recommendations for the special planning area include highlighting key natural features, shielding new development from view, and using features and design elements that complement the historic character of Green Level. No historic buildings are located on the subject property, but the property is directly adjacent to the Green Level Historic District. The applicant has offered conditions prohibiting driveway cuts along Mills Road and Green Level Church Road, an additional 20 feet of streetscape width along Green Level Church Road, a 30-foot streetscape along Mills Road, and a design feature at the corner of Green Level Church Road and Mills Road intended to reflect the historic character of the area. A virtual neighborhood meeting was held in June. 12 property owners attended. They had questions regarding the timing for the future widening of Green Level Church Road, the size of perimeter buffers, and the developer's plans or desire to develop additional surrounding property. Neighbors also stated concerns about the noise currently being generated by riders of all-terrain vehicles on the subject property and along Mills Road. After the neighborhood meeting, 3 citizens contacted staff with questions about the annexation process, the future of Green Level Church Road, and questions from an adjacent property owner who is concerned about the future of the pond on the subject property, a small portion of which falls on his property. A public hearing was held on July 22nd. An adjacent property owner spoke about the potential impacts to his property due to the planned draining of a pond on the rezoning site, and as a result, his wishing to build a new house on another part of his property at the rear of his property and to be annexed into Cary. Staff will work with the citizen to achieve his goals. Following the public hearing, Town Council members asked questions about the requirements and timing for installation of curb, gutter, sidewalk, both within the new development and along its Green Level Church Road frontage, and about timing of greenway construction along the western edge of the site. One member expressed a desire for new development to include a streetscape along Mills Road, as well as design features that complement the historic and rural aspects of the area. Another member expressed a desire for separated bike lanes whenever the length of Green Level Church Road is widened and improved in the future. Staff's preliminary finding is for consistency with the Imagine Cary Community Plan because the requested zoning and the conditions offered support several plan policies and appear to be consistent with the Green Level Special Planning Area vision. And this concludes my presentation. I'm available to answer any questions following the applicant's comments and following the applicant's comments. Jason Barron, the applicant's representative, is here to speak on the applicant's behalf.
Great. Thanks, Ms. Redling. I appreciate your presentation of the case. And Mr. Chair and members of the Planning and Zoning Board, Jason Barron with Morningstar Law Group here on behalf of the applicant in the case that's before you tonight. I'll be honest with you, when I got the call from this applicant, and I've worked with them in a number of places, whether it's Cary, Apex, Raleigh, and a number of other jurisdictions, I was thrilled to be working on an R12 zoning case and not a residential multifamily or an MXD for apartments. I've had a lot of what the town council likes to refer to as 51 to 49 cases over the course of the last couple of years. And so having a client reach out to me seeking to do minimum 12,000 square foot lots in an area where 12,000 square foot lots is entirely appropriate was a relished opportunity, hopefully for a much shorter putt than the ones that I've had on my previous cases. And Ms. Redling's done a fantastic job of kind of setting up the basics of the case. I think it's a pretty straightforward case. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. I do want to highlight a couple of things. With respect to the pond, just for everybody's edification, we have confirmed via a site visit that is not a jurisdictional or otherwise buffered pond. And so the anticipation is that would be drained as part of the development case. We have been working closely with our adjacent neighbor to the south, Mr. Praticutti, to ensure that his concerns are addressed. And honestly, those conversations related to his concerns over the pond started with the pond, but really kind of morphed into he wants to make sure that we provide an access stub from our site along kind of his western boundary into his site so that he can have future development opportunities on the backside of his property. The conversation with him has kind of evolved in that area, and we're happy to continue working with him and making sure that he has access to and from this site when it develops for any potential development opportunities that may happen with his site. Second, I'm personally excited about the question that we got from Councilman Urha at the public hearing related to treatments along Mills Road, Green Level Church Road, as well as figuring out what we could do with respect to paying homage to the historic and rural nature of the area. As Ms. Redling mentioned, we have provided a 30-foot type B streetscape where the ordinance wouldn't otherwise provide a streetscape along Mills Road. We've increased the average streetscape along Green Level Church Road from 50 to 70 feet. And I think importantly, and one thing I'm really excited about, Councilman Urha said he didn't have any ideas about what he was looking for with respect to that particular condition, but wanted us to work and knew we could come up with something. I'm hopeful that what we've come up with will meet his expectations, and I appreciate staff working closely with us. And my client was more than willing to collaborate with the historic preservation director that the town has to come up with this condition whereby we're essentially installing a fence that's going to be rural in nature at the corner. It's going to have some red buds or similar ornamental trees in that area. We initially had proposed red buds. The staff came back and said, okay, why don't we do something a little bit more soft and not be quite so specific? But the idea is to kind of create something unique on the corner that signifies, without putting a sign or something along those lines, that you're entering kind of the rural historic area of the Green Level area, which, as we all know, that is, notwithstanding what's going on, in the special planning area associated with the destination center, the historic district really is the focal point of the Green Level West special planning area. And so, and a lot of that goes into the density that's proposed as part of this case and so on and so forth. But I did want to make those couple of points with respect to the pond as well as the fence condition and what that intent is. And again, that intent is really to kind of signify, without needing a bright, glowing yellow sign, that, hey, you're entering into the historic area of Green Level, even though we're not technically in it. So with that, I will conclude my brief remarks and open it up to any questions that you all may have.
All right, wonderful. Thank you, Ms. Redling and Mr. Barron, for your presentation and comments. So now we'll open up to each board member to be able to ask questions of staff or the applicant. I'll start off with Don Hamilton. Don, do you have any questions?
I do have a couple. Likewise, I appreciate the presentation. It answered most of mine. How big is the pond approximately?
I don't know that off the top of my head. My guess is it's probably a half an acre, maybe a third of an acre. It's not a huge pond. It's a fairly small feature right along the property boundary.
Great. The reason I asked that is I found the term critical environmental feature in that special area, and I couldn't find a definition for that. Can somebody define that for me? What is a critical environmental feature? It was listed in the special planning area.
I'll take a stab at that. I think that a critical environmental feature would be, for instance, the stream, the flat branch, as it is buffered, and it is a stream that feeds. It's a branch of a larger stream. I think in regards, and it could be tree stands, it could be anything that is critical to the area. I think in terms of the pond, I think that in my experience, the ponds were dammed for farm use, and the dam for this pond falls entirely on the subject property. And as such, it's not a natural pond, it's a man-made pond, and it was, most of these small ponds were dammed for livestock, basically, or maybe for some irrigation. I would not, because of that, call it a critical environmental feature. I'm sure it offers environmental benefits, but that would be my definition. Would not be this farm pond.
And if I could, Mr. Hamilton, if I could just dovetail on what Ms. Redling has shared. I mean, this pond, in addition to being pretty small, is not visible from any public right of way. You wouldn't know it was back there. It's heavily shrouded with trees. Literally, the only people who know it's there are the owner of this property and Mr. Pradicutty, who lives next door and just happens to be able to see the pond. Those are the only two people who otherwise know there's a pond back there.
Great. I appreciate it. I know it's kind of a curveball, and I tried to find a definition for it, but couldn't. I agree. I don't think it's anything critical, but just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Thanks, Don. Nicole, any questions for staff or applicant?
Yeah, I have one question. I thought I heard in the presentation that there is 1.67 units per acre. I was just curious how that compared to other developments that have similar characteristics.
It compares favorably. I know that I think the staff report does list the densities in the surrounding neighborhoods. I think it basically falls between Sutherland, which is just across the street to the east, and the Woodlands, which is just across Mills Road to the north. The average lot size in I think in Sutherland is between 8,000 and 10,000 square feet, and the average lot size in the Woodlands is between, I think, 16 to 19, something like that. So the R12 and the 12,000 square foot lots kind of falls right in between those two things. So I think the density compares favorably. It's not exactly the same as either, but it's in that range.
Okay, thank you. That's really helpful context. Okay, that was all my questions. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Nicole. Mary Jo Hill, questions?
I do not have any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Chuck Montgomery, questions for staff or applicant?
Yes, I suppose the applicant might be able to help me here. What's the most likely access to this subdivision? Would it be both on Mills Road and Green Level Church Road, or one or the other, or do they know at this time?
The way that preliminary planning is going, it looks like the site is going to enjoy exclusive access off of Mills Road with 2 points of access. We don't know that 100%, But everything our conversations with DOT have led us to believe is that given the, kind of the unusual frontage that this site shares on Green Level Church, that having a curb cut out there is probably not going to be part of the equation. And so my guess is, and our collective understanding is that we'll have a driveway into the site that essentially is across from Timber Mist Court in the Woodlands. And then we'll have another driveway to the west before you get to the buffered stream that essentially serves as the western boundary of the site.
Okay, thank you. That's quite helpful.
Anything else, Chuck?
Nothing else.
Okay, thanks. Steve Crutchfield, questions?
No questions, thank you.
Okay, Jessica Pearson?
Yeah, I just have one question. So the proposed rezoning limits the number of dwellings to 55. Is it possible that given constraints on the site that there would actually be less units than 55?
It's entirely possible. My guess is it'll come in under that number. I mean, the good news is it's not a terribly complicated site. My guess is it will come in under that 55. That number never goes up, and it definitely can't go up because it's a zoning condition. That always goes down at the time you get to development plan, just when you go to engineer and you discover things that you don't know that are there. But for all intents and purposes, we feel like 55 is a comfortable number. Whether it ends up being 52, 53 is to be determined. But my guess is it will come in under that slightly.
And I
Okay.
would say
Yeah.
it was my shorthand on this slide that the way it's phrased, it sounds like it must be 55. The actual zoning condition, I was just trying to save room, is actually a maximum of 55.
Oh yeah, I didn't catch that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a maximum of 55. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for clarifying. That's it for me.
Okay, thanks, Jessica. John Sorrell, questions?
No questions for me. The presentation got it all. Thanks.
Thank you. Jessica McClure?
No other questions.
And you're going to find this amazing, but I don't have any questions either. So
That's remarkable.
I'm gonna write this one down in my zoning diary.
there you go, Jay. Yes, you should.
Good job, Jason.
I think it speaks to the applicant's proposal. So with that, are there any other questions before we move on? I just want to double check. Anybody have any follow-up questions? Hearing none. Okay. Would somebody like to make a motion on 21 REZ 07, the Mills residential rezoning?
Sure, I'll make a motion. I would like to move that the board find case number 21 REZ07 is consistent with the comprehensive plan and all other applicable plans for the reasons set forth in the staff report, presentation, and discussion by the Planning and Zoning Board.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second it.
Thanks, Don. Okay, so let's have a discussion on the motion. We'll start off with Jessica Pearson. Jessica, want to start us off?
Yeah, thanks. I think that the fact that it's currently zoned residential R40 and that the the rezoning is to R12 conditional use, and that there have been limits put on the maximum number of dwellings, the lot sizes, and that it is consistent with the special planning area. And for all the things that were in the staff's presentation, I just think it makes sense. I also think, with these types of rezonings, I always like to look at the density, the units per acre, and the fact that it compares to ranges within the nearby neighborhoods is encouraging to me. So that is why I made the motion.
Great, thank you. Don, comments?
I agree with everything Jessica said. The big thing for me was the considerably lower density compared to what it could be now.
Thanks. So let's continue on. Nicole Samuel, any comments?
No more comments.
Okay, Mary Jo Hill?
No further comments.
Chuck Montgomery?
The only reason I could think to vote against this would be to shock the proponent, but I don't want to do that, so I'll support it fully.
Steve Crutchfield?
I support this. It's actually nice, as was said earlier, to do some detached dwellings for a change. So looks good.
Good. John Sorrell, comments.
No comments. Thank you.
Jessica McClure.
I support it. I used to live out this way, so driving down that corridor, it was always, pretty calm and restricted. So again, happy to see this kind of development going in there.
Thank you. I'm going to echo that. This is, I've been on the board. I'm going on 6 years. I'm going off this next month will be my last meeting, but I don't know if I've ever seen a project like this where it's just like, came in and just made so much sense, and it wasn't a request to push a boundary one way or the other. I really like the fact that it'll be utilizing the Mills Road access. I think that obviously smart on the part of the developer, not getting entangled on the DOT side of things and the street widening, etc. But also, I think taking into consideration the place, the fact that it does border on a historic area, and I think they tried to do in the process of designing a project that's, I think contextually sensitive is always nice to see. We don't see that very often from the Planning and Zoning Board. So, all right. Is there any other comments for discussion? If not, I'll call on each of you and please state your vote. Don Hamilton.
Aye.
Nicole Samuel.
Aye.
Mary Jo Hill.
Aye.
Chuck Montgomery.
Aye.
Steve Crutchfield.
Aye.
Jessica Pearson. Jessica Pearson.
Aye.
Thank you. John Sorrell.
Aye.
Jessica McClure.
Aye.
And I vote the affirmative as well. Motion passes unanimously, 9-0. Thank you. Thank you to staff and all the applicants' representatives tonight. We don't have any old business before us or new business that I am aware of. I'll check with staff one more time. Is there anything from staff that we should be aware of? And hearing nothing, then the last item is for adjournment. And I thank you for participating in tonight's meeting, for the staff as well as the entire board, as well as the applicants' representatives, and for the general public who may be watching. Thank you for joining us. And at this point, I will call this meeting adjourned. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good night.
Aye. Thanks.
All right.
Good night.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.